Chris Chinnock here for Display Daily. I'm here at the SMPTE 2014 conference with Gavin Wang, who's with Dolby Laboratories. And we've just been looking at and chatting about some of your HDR monitors. Now, the setup that you have here is, again, a side-by-side comparison with this is your 32-inch high dynamic range monitor and a more conventional Rec 709 monitor for comparison, running side-by-side content. We have seen most of this content, but you explained you have some new content. Explain that to me.
So on the prototype monitor that we have here, we're showing some broadcast grade content, kind of the typical things that you would find off of a Grass Valley Ikegami type of camera, broadcast grade camera. And even in those cameras, even though they capture lower dynamic range, they still bring a lot more value in the content. There's a lot more details when you work in HDR than if you were to work in standard 100-nit SDR.
How many f-stops do you think you can capture in an Ikegami camera like that, broadcast camera?
I think we can capture around 11 stops of dynamic range. Okay. And that, when you deliver in a 100-nit SDR, it's still being compressed down to a 6 to 8 type of stop dynamic range display.
Okay. And we were looking at it before, and there are some parts in the acquired material where the whites had already been crushed, which you are not able to recover in a HDR process.
Right. That's one of the benefits that we're touting in Dolby Vision, is that you want to master or at least start off with the highest dynamic range as possible, because in dynamic range, it's a lot easier to be able to take the entire dynamic range and compress that down into this lower dynamic range displays. The issue is when you start off with a low dynamic range signal, you can't expand that and get all the detail back, because a lot of that detail is thrown out.
It's not like resolution expansion.
Right, exactly.
Now, the other thing we were talking about the other day was the new SMPTE standard, ST2084, which is perceptual quality, and this is supposed to be a replacement for gamma. So explain what gamma is and what the PQ measurement is.
Yeah, so gamma is kind of a power function that we apply to a video signal to match CRT, just the way CRT displays had their response.
It's the mapping of the grayscale levels to the particular display characteristics.
That's right. And that display characteristic was a CRT, and a lot of this is legacy. ST2084 is our perceptual quantizer. What that does is it has a couple of benefits. One is, it's modeled not around a specific display technology. It's modeled around how the human eye sees. And the human eye sees more logarithmically than a power function or linearly. Yeah. So that the signal in PQ is a much more efficient signal, because it's spreading out the code words to where the human eye is most sensitive to. And
so does it have more in the darks and less in the brights?
Yeah, for example, 50% of the code word values are 100 nit and below. And then the remaining goes all the way up to a 10,000 nit level.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot then in the lower ranges, isn't it?
Right, because the eye is more sensitive in the darks than it is in the brights.
Okay. So this would be used in the production process to encode the content for distribution. Once it's received by a TV, then it will be interpreted by the TV to the particular characteristics of and capabilities of that display, correct?
Right, and with Dolby Vision, what we try to do is maintain director's intent. So the workflow today is, if you're working in, let's say, an 8-bit workflow, the highest 8-bit value, 235. Well, when you're creating content, you're using that on a 100-nit reference monitor. When you're delivering that content to the home, the consumer TV might be 350, 400, 500 nits. That 235 will automatically go to whatever that display is capable of. Right. So director's intent was, well, it should be at 100 nits. But at home, they're seeing it at 400 or 500 nits.
Right. So it's stretching the luminance, basically, instead of mapping the luminance.
Right. And then one of the benefits in ST2084 is now it's an absolute code word to luminance value, whereas you have 235 code word value at 100 nits. That's fixed. So regardless of how your display is, if it's 500 nits or 100 nits, that will always display at 100 nits, maintaining director's intent.
Right. This firecracker is supposed to be at so many nits, and that's this code word, and that's what it's always going to be. And if the display is not capable of showing that luminance level, what happens then?
What happens then is some of our technology will compress that down or clip, depending on however the director wants the content to be delivered, is what will happen.
Oh, so the director will specify how he wants his wide gamut compressed to lower dynamic range displays. Is that correct? So, and how is that? That's carried by metadata to do that, or?
Yeah, we have metadata that's carrying that all the way to the consumer TV. So we're working in the entire ecosystem of content creation all the way to the encoding and decoding and viewing of Dolby Vision content.
So this is, I guess, this is done with the colorist, and when it's graded, you do a high dynamics grade. You might do a Rec 709 grade.
A Rec 709 proxy or a DCI proxy, along with your HDR grade. Correct.
I got it. Very interesting. Well, how's been the reaction to the display here? I'm sure people are loving it, right?
It's been great, and it's really exciting to see the industry react and support our efforts in HDR in general. So that's been overwhelmingly positive. So,
thank you, Gavin.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Chris Chinnock for Display Daily.